Hello, welcome back to my channel. Warmest of welcomes if you're new here and you're joining us for the first time. Otherwise, hello and welcome back. I'm here with a very different video today, which I'm really excited about, and it's very long overdue. I'm really excited to be kind of sitting down again and talking with you all. This is a birth story video. It's approximately 12 weeks overdue, but you know, life happens. Babies happen. I don't know if I'm going to be able to film this all in one go for you all, because I do have a baby who is feeling very sorry for herself and is very grumpy. She's just had her immunizations, so we'll try and see how much we can get done. I've got here a cup of tea. Please do join me. Let's have a chat and a catch up about how things have been going and about my birth experience. So just kind of want to start off with a bit of a disclaimer. If pregnancy and labour and childbirth is a topic that's going to upset you, if it's quite sensitive to you, if it's going to trigger you in any way, please just be really kind to yourself and sensible. Or if you kind of, you know, you're watching along and if it gets to a certain point where you feel that you don't want to continue watching on, I will not be offended in any way. I just care about you. I'm not going to go into a great amount of detail anyways, but just as a bit of a disclaimer, I am going to be talking about obviously like labouring and like medicines given and things like that. There are no kind of, like, my labour was very by the book. There's no kind of nasty surprises or anything like that as far as that's concerned. So without further ado, let's begin. So my due date with baby girl was the 29th of October, and I guess kind of like the start of my labour kind of begins a couple of weeks before that. So on the 15th of October, 2 weeks before my due date, I was starting to get the odd couple of contractions. I would never have more than 2 like consecutive contractions that were classed as regular. So they would last anywhere between 45 seconds to 1 minute, and they were roughly like 5 minutes apart. So I would have like 2 of those and then wouldn't have any more. So at my midwife appointment, I think it was like my 38-week midwife appointment, they didn't really seem too concerned by that. My midwife was just kind of like, oh yeah, so your body's thinking about it then. And that was that. Also around the same kind of time, so 2 weeks before my due date, I thought I had lost my mucus plug, but there wasn't very much there at all. It was just a little bit, and after doing a bit of research, I found out you can actually use your mucus plug in stages. It doesn't have to, you know, all come out at once. Going into like just a little bit of detail here, I didn't have a bloody show. It was like purely just mucus, and that's exactly what happened right up until delivery, basically. At my 38-week midwife appointment, I was told that baby girl's head was 3/5 of the way engaged, which apparently, as a first-time mum, that is quite quite quick for the head to be that engaged at that point in pregnancy, because there is a bit of like a myth that first-time mums and first babies tend to be late more than they are on time or early. So they were a little bit surprised by that. On that particular day, on the 15th of October, I had like those contractions, a bit of mucus, but then after that, nothing. Things just kind of paused there. I had another midwife appointment on the 18th of October, and she kind of felt my belly and she kind of felt that the head was no longer engaged. I don't even know if this can happen, by the way, but she felt like maybe the head had kind of gone back up a little bit. And I was also told at the same time, and she was back to back. And on top of that, I was kind of referred to go and have a growth scan, just because they felt that baby girl was kind of no longer tracking at the kind of level of growth that she was supposed to, which for my particular pregnancy was a bit odd, because things were just, my pregnancy was so by the book. Like everything was happening at exactly the right times, and everything was like so on track. So the fact that she hadn't grown just that tiny bit more, they were a little bit concerned. So I went to have a growth scan. The following day, which was the 19th of October, I had my growth scan, and the sonographer said to me and Sam, no, none of that's true. Your baby's in the perfect position for birth. She's head down, her head's very, very low, and at that time she weighed 7 pounds and 2 ounces, which was absolutely perfect, and was exactly where she was supposed to be that far on into the pregnancy. So panic was over. Then things kind of paused there, and things just kind of progressed as usual. Didn't really have any other symptoms. So this takes us up to the 26th of October, so that's 3 days before my official due date. I woke up in the morning at about 6-7 o'clock, and I got out of bed, and as I stood I felt a little trickle, and I thought, have my waters broke? I felt a little trickle, and I was like, I called for Sam, and I was like, Sam, I think my waters have just broken. But again, I was just so unsure, because it's not like the movies where you just have a massive gush. It was literally a little bit of a trickle, like there's a little trickle on the carpet, and that was that. So I called the midwife just to get a bit of advice, and she didn't, from what I was explaining to her, she didn't seem to think that it was my waters, and what she advised me to do was to wear a pad, and she gave me a certain time frame. I think it was 3 hours or 4 hours or something, but she wanted me to just kind of monitor the pad and see if any more I guess liquid had seeped onto the pad, by which time I called her back and there was nothing else. The pad was dry. I just had a bit of mucus. So the midwife was quite happy that I was not in the early stages of labour or anything. However, after doing a bit of research, I have since found out that you actually have a back waters and you have a front waters, and sometimes the back waters can go before the front waters, which is your main waters. So to this day I think that was my back waters. So that was kind of all that happened on that particular day. The following day was the 27th of October, which is 2 days before my official due date. So on the 27th of October, I the early hours of that morning, I'm talking 1 a.m. So it had just turned the 27th of October. I was having a real hard time staying asleep or getting to sleep, because I was having those odd contractions again. However, I did manage to sleep through the majority of the night, which kind of suggests that maybe the contractions were not that strong if I was able to sleep through them. I woke up at 5 a.m. on the 27th of October, and I was in a lot of pain. I had to get up out of bed. I walked through into the living room, and I had to kind of sit on my birthing ball and kind of bounce through the contractions. I also found that I couldn't sit still through the contractions. I felt like I had to pace up and down, just walk up and down. I had to be moving, which midwives and healthcare professionals might tell you that if you're in the early stages of labour, then you can't do anything. You can't breathe, you can't talk, you can't move. However, for me it was the opposite, and I felt like I had to just do something and just move. So that was what was going on for me at about 5 a.m. in the morning. The contractions were lasting roughly about a minute and a half to 2 minutes long each one, and they could be as frequent as every 5, 6 or 7 minutes. I downloaded a contraction timer app, and on the App Store it literally is just called Contraction Timer, and it's really, really good. I recommend. It tells you when to basically go to hospital. The contraction timer at about 5:30 in the morning, it told me to kind of start thinking about getting ready to go to hospital. So it just kind of said, you've got time to have a shower, have something to eat, double check your hospital bags. It wasn't telling me to go. So at about 6 o'clock in the morning, I rang the midwife triage line and just kind of let them know what was going on. And the midwife said that, you know, you're not ready to come to hospital unless those contractions are exactly the same length apart every single time, and they last the same amount of time each and every time. However, now that I'm kind of talking about this in hindsight, that was never ever true. Even when I was in full established labour, my contractions were never like perfect and like spot on like each and every time. So yeah, just kind of, I guess, take that advice how you will. The midwife was really, really helpful. She basically just told me how to labour at home for as long as I could, as best as I could. She just kind of said, you know, I know you're in a lot of pain right now, but I don't want you to kind of get your hopes up, but like not a lot is probably happening right now, like with your body. So I just kind of went about my day. I was, you know, going around the flat, I was cooking, cleaning, running errands, but I just took paracetamol, and I was determined that I was going to be at home for as long as possible, just so I didn't have to be in hospital for longer than I needed to. So I just took paracetamol, and I just kind of went about my day. At 9:30 at night, the pain was just unbearable. I was in tears, and like nothing that I seemed to do had helped. I rang the hospital. I just said, please, can I just come in for pain relief? Like, I'm more than happy to come in, get some pain relief, and I will go home. Then they were absolutely fine. They said, yeah, I'll let them know that you're coming in. And thankfully for Sam and I, the hospital is literally only a 5-minute drive from where we are. So it took us like no time at all. But at this stage in my pregnancy, I had my hospital bag like in the boot of my car at all times, like just in case anyway. So went up to the hospital, and it was quite embarrassing, but I was just like in so much pain, and me and Sam didn't even know where to go. We just rocked on up to the maternity building part of the hospital, and we were like, where do we go now? I think it's up one flight of stairs, or I think we go up the lift, like where. So we were just walking around, and I was crying, and the staff was so lovely. I was like, I just want some pain relief, and they were like, okay, that's fine, we can do that, we can give you pain relief, you can have whatever you want here, that's what it's there for. And I was like, okay. So they took me off to one of the, I guess, like examination rooms, and I don't even know what medication they give you at this point in labor. I think it's codeine, but I don't know. I just remember it was an oral tablet. And we had a really lovely midwife, and her name was Bonga. And the reason why I say that is because if you know me personally, or you know where I live, then you know, if you happen to be having a baby and you go to the same hospital that I gave birth at, then you're in very good hands with Bonga. She was amazing. So she examined me, and I had some gas and air through the examination, and I was 2 centimeters dilated, which I 100% fully expected. I knew that I was not going to be like hardly dilated at all. It would be around like the kind of 2 centimeter mark, maybe even 1. So I just kind of said to her, you know, can I just stay here like in this room and wait for the kind of pain relief to kick in? Then I will be out of your hair, I'll go. But something that really surprised me was she said, do you want me to admit you? We've got a lovely birthing pool, you can get in. I'll admit you if you want to, which I was really surprised about, because I didn't think you could even be admitted at 2 centimeters. And at that point I really wasn't sure what to do, because I didn't want to be in hospital for days, obviously, and I kind of expected like labour to be, you know, a very long experience. So I kind of looked at Sam, and he was very encouraging, and he was like, just go for it, just get in the pool and then see how you feel. So I said, yeah, okay. So at 10:30 p.m. on the 27th of October, I was admitted. So I got in the birthing pool, which was never ever part of the plan. I never really particularly liked the idea of having a water birth, but I did get in the birthing pool, and it was actually really, really helpful for the pain relief, and I felt very relaxed. I had the gas and air, which, by the way, the gas and air did nothing for me. Throughout the whole of my labour, I couldn't quite master timing having the gas and air in order for it to kick in while a contraction was happening. It always kicked in once the contraction was over. So for me, gas and air did nothing. This is where like the timeline gets a little bit fuzzy for me, probably because of the gas and air, but timescales and things like that are just going to be really approximate here because I can't quite remember. But I think it was around kind of like midnight-ish. I had to get out of the birthing pool so that I could be monitored, because baby girl's heart rate was a little bit on the high side. So I had to get out of the birthing pool and then get onto the bed, and you know, they strap you all up so they can monitor your baby. When you're in labour, you get examined every 4 hours to kind of check how dilated you are. And a typical labour, they kind of expect you to dilate by around 2 centimetres every 4 hours. So by this examination, I think I was around 4 centimetres dilated, which we were kind of on track for. So I think this is around kind of like midnight-ish. However, I was examined again at 2 a.m. and I don't think anything had really happened, and my waters still hadn't broken. So the midwife suggested that she break my waters for me, just to kind of help things progress, because she felt that things were being delayed by my waters not being broken. So at 2 a.m. my waters were broken, and then after that I went something crazy. Like I think I went from like 4 centimeters to 8 in like 2 hours or something like that. That's just like a very rough figure, but I remember the midwife being like quite surprised and quite shocked that I had dilated so much in a short amount of time. So at about 4 a.m. Our midwife Bonga was saying, you know, get ready for this baby to be born, like in the next couple of hours, like your baby's coming very, very soon, like she could be born ASAP. So while that was happening, Sam was, you know, making phone calls to like my family and his family just to update them on what was going on. And he's like, you know, baby's going to be born like soon. However, like a few hours had passed and people were kind of like, what's going on? Has she been born yet? And we're like, no, don't really know what's going on now. I really don't know the time scale of what happened, but at some point the pain was too much and I requested the epidural. I also had the diamorphine injection, which used to be pethidine. At some point I had that, and I don't know when. I don't know if it was before or after my waters had broken. I don't know. But I asked for the epidural. I don't really know what time this was, maybe like 5 a.m. However, the epidural does take a bit of time because you have to wait for, I think it's an anaesthetist who does it, but you have to wait for someone to be available to do it for you. And then the actual process of them doing the epidural is quite lengthy as well. So we waited like an hour for someone to come and do it for me. And then it took another hour to actually do it because they have to make you aware of like all the side effects. I think you have to sign a bit of paperwork. This bit is all a bit fuzzy to me. And then you have to obviously get in the right position. And at this point, I was so tired. That I was like falling asleep while the anaesthetist was like preparing the epidural for me and like putting it in my back. I was literally falling asleep and he was holding me still, and I was like this, like I was just so tired. After I had the epidural, I felt nothing. I didn't feel any contractions. Couldn't really feel my body from like my waist down. I couldn't feel anything at all. And because of that, I think the epidural actually slowed things down for me quite a lot. I actually slept, I think I slept for like an hour, maybe like 2 hours. All I remember is waking up and the midwife singing Beyonce, just vibing, and I think Sam had actually slept in the chair a bit, and he'd gone and got himself a coffee. I just woke up and I was like, wow, I slept through all those contractions. But yeah, I felt nothing, and because I slept through, it really slowed down my labour. So for that reason, I wouldn't recommend an epidural. However, I don't know if I have it in my locker to do birth without one. So take that as you will. At 7:15 a.m, I was fully dilated and ready to push. However, the procedure for my kind of local authority, Hampshire hospitals, I don't know if this is just like a Hampshire hospitals thing or if this is every hospital in the UK, but basically it's the hospital procedure that you have to be cannulated before you can push, just in case you need like a blood transfusion or you need like drugs instantly or something. You have to have a cannula in. Now, the problem with that is all the way through my pregnancy, I had the massive issue of having really, really tricky veins. It's impossible to get blood from me, and it's impossible to find my veins. So the midwife tried for an hour to find a vein. She couldn't do it, so she asked another midwife, her colleague, to try, who also couldn't try. So they asked the anaesthetist to come and do it, and it took her like an hour to find a vein. Like they tried my feet, like they tried everywhere. I was covered in bruises. So again, that slowed things down for me because that was an hour gone just trying to cannulate me when I could have been pushing. But eventually we got there and I was ready to start officially pushing at 9 a.m, and that is when pushing commenced. A kind of unfortunate thing was at 9 a.m I was literally ready to push, and our lovely midwife, her shift had ended and it was time for her to go home because the night staff had finished and the day staff were about to come on. So they changed, all the staff kind of swapped over, and then the midwife looking after me was called Maisie, and she was absolutely incredible. So she assisted my delivery. I was ready to start pushing at 9 a.m, and baby girl did a poo inside of me, which you may or may not know is a sign of distress, and it can be quite dangerous as well if the baby like breathes it in. I don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, so but yeah, that's quite dangerous. So what happened was, at this point I'm still laying down on the bed, and the midwife suggested that we get my legs in stirrups, so my legs were like really, really high, and I started doing like my first few pushes. Because of the epidural, I didn't know when I was contracting, so our midwife had to tell me when I was contracting and tell me when to push, and that's basically what happened all the way through that part of labour. After a few pushes, the midwife is like, you know what, we're going to get your legs up even higher, and I want you to like pull your knees towards you as you're pushing as well. So at 10 a.m I had been pushing for an hour, and the midwife had come and brought a doctor in, and they basically had like quite a serious conversation with us and said, you know, it's been an hour, things haven't really progressed as much as we would like, and you know, your baby's getting quite agitated as well on top of that, and also her heart rate was quite high. So they kind of said, you know, we usually give women about 2 hours as an absolute maximum to push, and then after 2 hours we really need to start thinking about having an assisted delivery. So that could be the use of a suction cup, forceps, or an emergency C-section. And at this point I started to get really upset and quite tearful, because I knew that I could do it without assistance. I knew that I could do it. And I just didn't want that for baby girl either. I didn't want her to come into the world that way. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with assisted deliveries, by the way. This was according to my like birth preferences that I'd kind of already agreed before coming into hospital. We had that kind of really serious conversation, and I'm still pushing, and baby girl was born at 10:55 in the morning with 5 minutes to spare before others, you know, other professionals kind of were about to intervene. So we made it with 5 minutes to spare. I did have a 2nd degree tear. I also, after giving birth, my temperature skyrocketed. I think it was like 40 or something, quite worrying like that. And I was basically treated as a sepsis patient. So they were really worried about my temperature. I had to stay in hospital for 3 days with baby girl, just because they thought I had an infection or something, and I was on IV antibiotics. I also had a catheter in because I did have the epidural, and they were worried about the chances of me passing on an infection to baby girl as well. On top of that, baby girl also had jaundice, and she had to go under the lights for a night. So we stayed in for 3 days, but I had the most amazing experience. I loved giving birth, and I would do it 100 times over. I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually looking forward to maybe doing it again one day in the future. That's how much of an amazing experience it was for me. And I would not have had that experience if it wasn't for our midwives. Like, they honestly could not do enough for us. I remember after baby girl was born, and obviously they discovered that I had a temperature, I was literally dripping in sweat, and our midwife literally, obviously with my consent, she went and got a hair tie for me because I didn't have one, and she literally grabbed my hair and just put it up in a bun for me. But yeah, I think because of the amount of drugs that I was on, because technically I did have like every pain relief that you can possibly have. I had everything, and I was a little bit out of it, and it didn't ruin my experiences, but it did, I would say that it did take away from my experience a little bit. With that being said, you know, I mentioned before, I don't know if I have it in my locker to do birth without an epidural. I really don't. So there's pros and cons to everything, really, isn't there?
Hello everyone. I wonder if you can guess what kind of vlog this is. I have somebody very special here who I would like you to meet. Everyone say hello to our beautiful little girl. And if you know, you know.
Here she is, my little minion, our little Carson Jane. Say hello. Oh, bless her. obviously I'm a strong believer in that everything happens for a reason. And when I'm talking about all these delays that happened during labour, like the trying to find my veins and having an epidural and things like that, because everything happens for a reason, I believe that she was supposed to be born at 10:55. Also because throughout my pregnancy I kept seeing angel numbers like constantly, specifically 555 or 5555. So I think all of those things were supposed to happen, and she was supposed to come into the world at this time. My little bubba. In terms of, I don't know why I feel the need to answer this question, but I feel like it's a question loads of people have. In terms of, did I poop myself during delivery and labour while I was pushing? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I did. I mean, I know that she pooped inside me, and I just kind of looked down and I saw this poo and I was like, oh my God, is that me? And obviously the midwives reassured me that it was her. And I don't think that's the sort of thing you would lie about, because that's quite a serious thing, like, to happen during delivery. And also I ask Sam all the time, like even nearly 3 months later, I keep asking him if I did poo, and he will either say no, she did, or I don't think so. And Sam is literally too honest for his own good, and he is incapable of telling a lie. So the answer to that is I don't think so. But yeah. In terms of the birth and the delivery, would I have wanted anything to go differently, or would I have done anything differently? Yes, I would. I had a hospital bag, obviously packed, and I had everything in there that I wanted or thought I would have wanted and needed for like labour and delivery. However, because you know, things were just so heightened, I was obviously excited to meet my baby. I was a bit out of it. I was a bit anxious and scared. Like, I was just feeling every emotion. So that hospital bag stayed in the boot of the car throughout the whole of my like labour and delivery. And that actually disappoints me a little bit, because there was just like little things in there. Like, I had like a cooling mist, I had all my hair ties, I had comfier clothes, I had music, I had everything that you could possibly want. And I was actually so anxious of being left on my own that I didn't ask for Sam to go and get my bag, but he also didn't want to leave me. I should have brought it up with me when I went to go and get the pain relief, but I honestly had no idea I was about to be admitted. So I guess it's quite a small detail, but like there's just so much stuff that I wish I had used, you know, things that I bought specifically for my labour and delivery that I didn't get to use. I had a whole birth playlist, but instead I gave birth in total silence. Having said that, in the moment, I don't think I would have particularly have noticed the music, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, there's things that I would do different, but again, my experience of labour and delivery was so amazing. All that stuff would have added to my experience. It definitely didn't. Do you know what I mean? Oh, and another thing that happened, kind of another thing that made labour just maybe like slightly uncomfortable, was I bought this lovely Stanley cup. No, sorry, this Stanley dupe. I bought this Stanley dupe specifically for labour and delivery. And having said that, although I forgot to bring the hospital bag, I don't know how I ended up bringing this to the delivery suite with me. Like, this was in the car, so everything's a blur, so I don't know how I ended up with this. But what actually happened was, when I was labouring at home, I was on my birthing ball, and this was on the table, and I don't know why I did this, but I launched my birthing ball across the room, and this toppled over and the straw snapped in half. So the straw was literally like inside the cup, and I didn't have, basically, long story short, I didn't have this with a straw. And you need to have a straw when you give birth. Like drinking it like this, which I did do, is fine, but it's not ideal. You really, for birth, you need a straw. You need to sip, because you need like your birthing partner to come to you and offer you the straw. You don't want to be picking it up. Do you know what I mean? But that wasn't my fault, and that really upsets me. But that's literally like the worst thing. That's the worst thing that happened. And also, the most painful part of labour and delivery for me, although I had the epidural, honestly, the most painful thing was that first examination. Apart from that, pain-wise, it was completely fine. And to all my mamas out there, all mamas to be, you are capable of going through whatever pain or not pain you end up experiencing. Women and humans in general are amazing. Like, the things that we can do with our bodies is incredible. And having said all this, by the way, I have the lowest pain tolerance in the world. Like, you've never met anybody with a lower pain tolerance than me. I am a complete and utter melt. And if I can say that, that says a lot. But anyway, at the end of all of this, I have my beautiful baby girl. I would do it 100 times over for her, and she's so worth it. And I honestly, if time and finances allowed, I would keep having children. Like, my experience was that great. But I really hope that this video could be of some help to somebody. If I could give any advice, I hope you enjoyed this. It's very long overdue, but I'm so glad that I was finally able to tell you the story of how our beautiful little girl Carson Jane was brought into the world. But maybe I'll do another one of these videos again sometime soon in the future. Watch this space. But I really hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Please stay tuned for that, and please leave any comments, like any suggestions, or like leave any advice for others, or if you've got any questions, I'd love to answer them for you, and I hope I can help in some capacity. But I'd love to see you again next time. Take care. Bye.